Hello, everyone. Welcome to another informative live on White Davy Gardening and Worm Farm. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be just chit chatting about worms. And if you have questions, ask away. So, welcome. I don't know who you are, but welcome to the live. Oh, hi, Russell. Hi, Helpy. Well, I'm doing good today. How about you? What have you guys been up to these days? Okay, so as I said before, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. On my other lives, I usually just keep providing you with a lot of information about worms, but today I want us to just talk about worms. So just chit chatting, nothing specific planned, just to get to know more about you guys and you can get to know more about me. But when I say that, I'm not going to be prying into your personal business because I like to keep my life private. But we'll be chit chatting more, learning more about what we enjoy about worm stuff like that. Let's see. Russell says, just got done top feeding hatchlings. Okay, nice. Doing well, thank you. Garden planning. Oh, that is so much fun planning the garden. It is also so much work. Oh my goodness. I've been planning my garden from the moment the growing season end, and I'm still not done yet. I'm wondering what is it that I'm doing because practically every day I work on planning my garden and I'm still not done yet. But I'm getting close to seeing the end of the planning stage and then start working on those plans. I can't wait to see what my garden will look like this year. Let's see. LP says, I have a lot of seeds already, but there are quite a few I still want. It is so hard. Yes, I have a few more seeds that I also need to collect. So I'm working on that. I need to put a list together, but the seeds that I want, I bought my seeds from two locations, and some of the seeds that I want, that store does not open at this time of year. Their gardening section does not open this time of year, so I have to wait, unfortunately. So, yeah, hopefully they will have seeds and good seeds. Okay, so do you guys, well, I know Russell has a worm bin, worm farm, and I also know Helpy as worm farm. Let me see. I want to grow some kind of summer squash though. I have I've got plans for two winter squash. Do I have room? Ha. Do you grow any summer squash besides cucumber? Um, well, I don't really know what winter squash is. Oh, hi, Han White. Oh, that's Cian. Hi, Cian. Yes, I don't really know what winter squash is. Can you tell me what winter squash is? I grow squash. I have a plant. I grow um, squash, but the squash that I grow, I call it pumpkin and not squash. The thing that they call pumpkin, that big yellow thing that they use for Halloween, I don't like it. I don't grow it, and I don't, I just don't grow it because I don't like the texture of it. It's too watery. I like, those squash. I don't know what type of squash they're called, but those little. green ones that are round and flattish, those are the ones that I like because they tend to have this dry texture, and that is how I like pumpkin to be. So the pumpkins that we grow in Jamaica, they're big like the orange ones that they use here for Halloween, but they are dry. Most of them are dry like that flat type of squash. So that is the ones that I grow. So I don't know what falls into summer squash or winter squash. I just know that that is the type of squash that I grow. And I will be growing Pottigale, at least that's what it is called in Jamaica. I think it is one of the varieties of bottle gourd. Yes. So I will be growing that this year as soon as my seeds arrive. Oh, hi, Han White. I got a question for you guys. LP, you know how when you say, oh, interesting, and at the end of it, you have my channel name highlighted? How do you do that? Oh, hi, Princess. I haven't heard from you or seen any video from you in such a long time. I hope you're doing good. Yeah, so how do you highlight that? I don't know. Computers and I are not friends. Imagine I'm learning to use a computer from my kids. Even my 3-year-old is teaching me how to use a computer. Crazy, right? Yeah. Oh, hi, Closet Hoarder. I use the at symbol followed by the name. Wow, that's simple. Thank you. Nice. Now I know. Maybe I should jot it down. My memory is not always good. Okay, so how many of you on this live have a worm bin or a worm farm? Okay, so no space, then the name. It doesn't really work the same on my mobile device. On my computer, the available name will pop up and I can select who I'm referring to. Okay, that's pretty cool. 3 to 4 weeks from starting peppers. Nice. What type of peppers are you growing? Are they hot peppers or sweet peppers, spicy peppers, or a combination? So, Unwhite, you have a worm farm. Okay, let's see. You will see your own name highlighted when someone tag you like that. So I only see LP highlighted on my end. That way I can quickly find messages directed at me. Okay, let's see. Okay, you're talking to Princess. Okay. Okay. I like bells and bananas mostly. Okay. I've never grown banana peppers. I've never even had them. Are they banana pepper because of how they shape, or do they have a kind of banana flavor to them? I too have a worm farm, 3 beds, ENC, blue worms, and a small one for red regulars. Okay. For the shape. Okay, Russell, thanks. Yeah. So where you are, what is the temperature warm enough where you can keep your worms outdoors? Or do you have to keep them in an heated area? Mine, where I am, as most of you may know by now, they can only be outdoors between June and late September. Sometimes September is too cold for them too, so pretty much they get maybe 3 months outdoors because it's too cold. I've never put my Canadian night crawlers outdoors. They've always been indoors. So I don't know how long they would last outside, but since as they are the worms that can tolerate the coldest temperatures, then they can be out there longer, but they still can't be there when it's close to freezing temperature. If they were in the ground, then it's fine because they could bury down, but in a container they cannot be. So I've never really put them outside. And this year, is this year? Yes, 2021. All right. Yes, this year I'm not going to be putting my worms outside as I previously do. I'm going to be putting just some in the outdoor worm bin, but with the setup that I have now, I'm just going to let most of them stay inside and then use the outdoor bins for breeding. Let's see. And why it says I planted chilies and Scotch bonnet peppers. They have started to germinate. Oh, nice. Those peppers that I was doing the experiments with to see if they're still good, they still haven't germinated yet. They have heat and they have a small amount of light. They still haven't germinated yet, but it takes up to 21 days. So I'm allowing 21 days to pass to see if they will germinate. Let's see, LP say, no, it's cold, although it's been pretty mild for us. I keep them in the basement all year round. Okay. Yeah, this winter has been pretty mild. Um, Usually by December we start to get temperatures like in the 20s, and by the time it reached the second or third week in January, we'd have temperatures like -35 or something like that for a week or two, and February would be about that time, and then it goes back, start to go down, or start to go up is the right term. Right, but this winter has been pretty mild. We've been having single digits in the minus from December up until yesterday. And I think that is why we end up having a storm yesterday. Well, from Wednesday to Thursday, we had a storm because when it is usually this warm, a storm usually follows. So it knocked out powers a lot of areas, cities surrounding mine, and some people roof got damaged, stuff like that. But in my region, most people are quite okay. So I'm thankful for that. Some of them who lost power are finally regaining their power now. So I'm thankful for that, but it's too cold to have my worms outside. Let's see. But now the temperature has gone up to -18. But that's usually temperatures we'll be getting in November. So I'm pretty thankful, although I have some work to do outside and I'm not looking forward to it. Let's see. Russell says literally 1,000 of pounds of worms through my hands each year. Wow, that's a lot. Do you sell your worms, Russell? And don't worry, when I ask you that, I'm not. um, Whenever I get asked that question, like, do you sell your worms or how many worms do you have? Anyone who asks that question tend to stop watching my channel right after I answer. So, yeah, but it's fine. Yeah, so that's a lot of worms each year. Let's see, and why it says my worms are always out outside in a black bin. Okay. So I guess even if it get cold, I know you don't really reach down to very low temperature. So because your bin is black, that is gonna help to keep them warm when the time gets cold. So that's pretty good. My peppers are on our kitchen windowsill. Oh, I'm so jealous of anyone who can have plants on their windowsill and the plants do well. My house is not oriented north to south where my windows are concerned, so because of that, I cannot successfully grow anything on my windowsill. That's fantastic. Hi, Mom. Peppers on the windowsill. Nice. Yeah. Okay, so how long have you guys been worm farming? Let's see. I'm white. I too am jealous. Yeah. It makes it such a challenge when you want to grow stuff indoors and you can't because you don't have enough sunlight shining on your windowsill. But I guess that's all a part of life. So yes, I am happy. Uh, I started worm farming at the end of June 2020. Okay, so how have it been going for you, LP? Closet Hoarder says struggling approaching 9 months. Okay, so why are you struggling, Closet Hoarder? And let's see. Russell says, I breed them, I grow them, they put food in my stomach. I do not eat them. Ah, oh, funny. Yes, they do provide so much for us. I actually really enjoy them. My husband says that my worms are my second husbands because I love my worms so much. Bins and placement. Okay. What type of problems are you having with your bins? Placement, are you referring to having somewhere to keep them? Or is it that your worm farm is growing so fast that you have more bins that you need to find location for? I love worm farming, says LP. It's going pretty good for me. My new red wiggler bin is having some pH ammonia trouble, but I believe I'll get it under control. Okay. Yes, worm farming, I don't know. It's fun. It is so relaxing. A lot of people, when they want to relax, they might go listen to music. Well, guilty. Or they might go and watch TV and stuff like that. If it is not cold outside, well, it's not really outside, but true because it is in my garage, which is detached, so I have to go outside to get to the garage. But when it is nice and warm, you won't find me indoors unless I have chores doing in the inside. You won't find me indoors. I'm always either out in my garden or in the worm farm because it is just so relaxing. And what it says, I've got over 5,000 pounds of worms or 5,000 worms between both bins. I started mine in 2017. Okay, so we're pretty much started around the same time then. LP says, I told you you're not alone in hand counting worms. Well, I counted over 800 worms by hand a couple of weeks ago. Probably I do that again, but I liked it. Prob- Sorry. Probably I don't do that again, but I liked it. Let's see. 5,000 pounds would be incredible. 5,000, okay, worms, not 5,000 pounds of worms. Oh, okay. To be honest, I don't know how many worms I have. I used to be able to keep track of it, but I I don't know now because As you know, this year, well, that was last year, March, I get it together. um, as you know, last year I redo my worm farm, and the way that I have it set up now, all of the worms that I harvested from outdoors, I just divide them up in a small amount, like maybe a handful of worms, and put it in all those trays that I have there now. So, in terms of how much I have, I don't know what rate they have multiplied at and anything like that. So, I don't really know how much I have. I don't think it is all that much because, like I said, most of those trays just have a handful of worms when I put them in there, and that was September, October. So, I don't really know how much I have. Hoping to have at least 1 million worms, like 1,000 pounds of worms. Yeah, that would be nice. Let's see. I did DIY bins and purchased a used worm cafe. I have indoor and outdoor problems. I started them outdoors and killed them due to overfeed and watering. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, closet hoarder. Yeah. Um, Yeah, just like with gardening and everything else that we do in life, it is a trial and error situation. So we're going to be learning, we're going to be making mistakes. And no matter how perfect you are, there will be times when, well, sorry, not perfect. No matter how experienced you are, there will be times when you make mistakes because that's just human nature because we are imperfect. Yeah. So worm cafe, what is that like? I've never really seen a worm cafe, or if I've seen it, I don't know that that's what it is called. Maybe that's something I should look up to see what it looks like. But most of the commercially bought, when I say commercial, I don't mean for those who sell worms. I'm talking about worm bin that you buy as worm bins. Don't I'm not really a fan of the setup, and they are too small, and especially those stackable ones for what I want to do with my worms. They are just, it's too much of a bother to have to be taking off one stock to put on another one. And if I have to do that with all the worms that I have, I'm going to be in serious trouble. I'll be working every day of the week on worms alone. So if like it's a simple setup where it's just a few worms I have, then fine, but not with the setup that I have for those stackable ones. Let's see. LP says, I used to keep dry shredded material on top of my bins. Still do for blues, though I'm experimenting. Okay. Because I noticed that they don't crawl. They didn't crawl. But the ENC didn't like that. Oh, they didn't? It's interesting. I wonder why they didn't like it. Let's see. Closet order says I started another DIY bin outdoors, but due to the weather change, brought them indoors. Now I'm hiding them, hiding them from my husband. Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel your pain, closet order. When I first bought my worms, I put them in my compost bin that I have outside in one of my compost bin, and oh my goodness, they expanded, they reproduced so fast. I was quite amazed because in 2.5 months I had 20 times the amount of worms that I bought. I wish I would see increase like that again, but it has never happened. Yes, and after that I brought them indoors because it was the ending of August, and the time was getting cold. So I brought them indoors. I was keeping them in my basement downstairs. But then, as it was my first year dealing with them, I was overfeeding them, and the bin was smelly. And so, and then there was fruit flies in the bins. So my husband was not. Was not happy. He says, Marsha, you have to put those things outside. Yeah, so at least he was kind enough to allow me to keep them until the winter was up, and then I moved them out into the garage because the garage is heated. So they have been there since, and then every summer I put them outdoors so that they can enjoy a little bit of the outdoors. But I have a pound of worms that I keep indoors all the time because if something were to happen to the worms that I have outside, then at least I wouldn't want to have to go and buy new more worms to start over with. So I keep a pound of worms inside at all times, and as the population grow, I keep reducing it to 1 pound and put the rest outside in the worm bins. That bin, now that my husband has turned that location into a winery, so the worms got relocated, so I have to be hiding them in my spare bedroom. Yeah, he's gonna ask what are worms doing in a bedroom, but oh well, they have to be somewhere. Let's see. Helpy says, I changed to wetting the thick top layer of my ENC, and they're loving it. I don't bury the food scraps as deep now. Within a couple of weeks, that top material almost disappeared. Okay, yeah. Uh, it is said that ENCs, the night crawlers and a whole, they like to live in the soil and then they come up at nights to feed. So that I guess that's why they get the name night crawlers. Yes, so they come up to feed. So they like to feed off the surface, but I guess maybe because the food is on the surface, so naturally they would come up. So I don't know if it is a case that they love to come to the top or they just follow wherever the food is. But I'm glad they're settling in and loving it, LP. I haven't been able to see my European night crawlers since I installed them in the new worm bin. I still have some that I have left in the old worm bin, but just a third of the ENCs that I have. I haven't been able to see. I've seen maybe two of them in the new worm bin because there's so much material in there and they just bury themselves down in the material. They don't have a reason to come up, so I don't know how they're doing. But because I don't see them crawling on the sides of the bin, I'm assuming that maybe they're doing okay. Okay. Closet order, that's too bad. Sorry to hear that. You'll get your feet under you yet. I overfeed and sometimes still do in the beginning too. In fact, that's what I'm dealing with red regulars now. Okay. Yeah, it is a bit tricky not to overfeed them from time to time because you feed them, but sometimes you have some food scraps that you say, oh, the worms would love this. And because of that, you want to go out there and just feed it to them because you know it is something that they would love. And so sometimes we end up overfeeding them. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why I like to use finished compost as their food because then it doesn't really matter how much food I put in there because it won't go sour. It won't become acidic. The only thing that I have to be concerned about is that from time to time, I might have to go out and aerate the material a bit so that it doesn't get compacted. But this is one of the things that I like about using finished compost. And then when I'm busy, if I don't get the time to feed them, they have food because I just fill the entire bin with finished compost and just put them in there. The only thing I have to be concerned about is keep making sure that I keep them moist. Let's see. And why it says I use storage containers for my worm bins. Oh, okay. Yeah. Closet hoarder says I'm still learning. Yeah. Well, I've only been doing it for 3 years and I'm still learning. It's a never ending process. You're always learning something new. Let's see. Russell says, Garden Worm Lady runs those worm cafe like a well tunnel machine. Okay. Okay, so the worm beans that she have, that is what they call a worm cafe. Okay. I wonder how she's doing now. I hope she's recovering. Yes, oh, now that you mention her, this is something that I want to suggest for those of you who follow her channel, the Garden Worm Lady I'm talking about, because as you may know, she put out a video a few weeks ago saying that she has the COVID. So I was thinking that because she's not able to put out videos as often as she can, I think she's only done 2 videos since she got sick. So it would be good if we could occasionally go and rewatch some of her old videos so that we can offer her some support and be a source of encouragement for her at this time. Let's see. And White says, I feed them every week because my bins are compost bin, not just worm bins. Okay. Uh, it would be tricky for me to feed mine every week because if I was feeding food scraps, it would be a challenge because I don't know where I would get all that much food scraps from. I am no longer going to the restaurants to collect food scraps because of the COVID. So I'm keeping my distance, but unfortunately, it looks as if I might have to go back out there because I'm running out of compost and my household doesn't provide enough food scraps to take care of all those worms. Let's see. Princess says, I'm back now. I'm watching all your seeds plant, but I'm designing a project for my gardening friends. Very nice, very nice. Is it something you're gonna do a video on, or are we gonna get to see it? Closet Order said, as I noticed when I watch some Red Wrigglers vermicomposting videos, the worms look different. Are they different varieties, or are people naming them incorrectly? Interesting questions. I'm not really sure, but in my worm bin, the lady that I got worms from, she only raised red wigglers. And when I got my worms, they all pretty much look the same. But I've been noticing that sometimes the red wigglers can look a bit flat. You know, they're round worms. Sometimes they can look a bit flat. Other times you will see some that are mature, but they're lighter in color. They're not really red. They tend to be more pinkish and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to. I know that a lot of vendors, when they're selling worms, they sell a combination of worms. So there's one particular worm farmer, commercial worm farmer, who is online, and when he sells his worm, if you order red wigglers, you're not getting just red wigglers, you're getting blue worms and other worms in it, or at least so I've heard many people who purchase worms from that supplier say. So I don't know if that is the case. And then because they order red and they could get a mixture of other worms, they just call it reds because that's what they ordered. So I don't know. Could be also that, as you say, maybe they are naming them incorrectly. LP says, I put a cut t-shirt over the wet shredded material, then paper sheet over that, and fold paper bags over that. I find them on the surface at all times. Okay, interesting. Let's see. There are many different kinds of worms. Red wigglers are the most common, probably. Yes, so red wigglers are actually the most common composting worms, and then the various night crawlers and the blue worms. But apart from these, there are also other types of composting worms, but I'm not very familiar with them. In fact, I don't really know anything about them more than occasionally I might see a video with the names of some of these composting worms. But um, the night crawlers, the red wrigglers, and the blue worms are the most popular composting worms, mostly because of the rate at which they vermicompost. Yes, that makes sense. You use finished compost. I don't have any yet, and love recycling stuff in the bin. Yeah. Okay, Princess says hi to everyone. Right, let's see. Closet Hoarder says, LP, are there different varieties of red worms because they look different in videos? Um, in my experience with, although you're asking LP, in my experience with red wigglers or any of the worms that I have, sometimes when I am videoing, the worms will look different from other times. It's has to do with the device that you're using to record. It has to do with the lighting. It has to do with how close or how far away from the worms you have your camera. There are many things that affect how your worms look in your videos, actually. So sometimes it can just be because of the environment where you are videoing. Son, what are you doing? Okay. You need to go upstairs, baby, because I am doing my live and you are making noise. So go upstairs and watch your videos. Thank you. It's Alpha Blocks, okay. Yes, go and watch your Alpha Blocks. Oh, hi, her healthy home. Let's see. Oh no, I didn't know that. Okay. That's a great idea, White Davy. Okay, thank you, and White. LP says, I think I'm subscribed to her channel, or I was. Thanks for that update and encouragement to support her. Okay, no worries. We all are here as a family to help each other. Let's see. Sound of nature. Hello. It's nice that you were all able to be on the live. I'm actually enjoying this live. Rather, I do like the lives where I'm sharing practical information. In fact, that is what my channel is geared at. But I do enjoy these from time to time. And thank you guys for keeping the conversation going because I'm not very good. I'm not a very conversational person. I'm very quiet. But of course, if I'm talking about worms and gardenings, then I can talk. So I appreciate all of you who are listening and those who are commenting to keep the conversation going. Okay, let's see. Do you use cardboards or paper? I use cardboards and I use paper in my worm bins. Um, Paper, some of my bins, like, let's see, when I started out with worm farming, I used the paper as my bedding. I use the cardboard just as a base for my worm farm, because in my outdoor worm farm, because one of them is what you call it now, continuous flow through bin. So I use the cardboard to keep the material from falling out of the bin, and the other one has a solid base. So I put the cardboard on it because the worm like to go in between the crevices of the wood. So I use the cardboard to prevent them from doing that. But I don't really use a lot of paper and cardboard in my bin because of the type of bins that I have and because of what I'm feeding my worms, because I feed my worms finished compost, so that acts as their bedding and their food source. But I do use paper and cardboard from time to time because I find that the finished compost like to get a bit compacted, and when I have those shredded papers and use cardboard in there, it kind of creates some gaps in between the materials so that it does not get as compacted as before. So I do use it sometimes, but not always. But no, most of the times when I use cardboard, it is just to cover the top of the bins to help keep in the moisture. So whichever one you want to use, if you want to use both or you want to use all of them, it is just the same, works just the same. In fact, they love the cardboard. They love both the cardboard and the paper, but they love the cardboard because of the grooves that are in the cardboard. So they can actually go in between the grooves, and they like to stay in there and lay their eggs or their cocoons. So for that reason, they really love the cardboard, and then they can hide. CLP says showing 5 likes on my end, but 13 watching. So don't forget to click the like button. Oh, thank you, LP. Let's see. LP. Yes, he sells them now as a compost worm mixture. In the description, he explained that you will likely get 3 different types of worms. I wound up with mostly blues, which I am loving. Okay, that's nice. Sound of Nature. There is 2,700 odd types of earthworms. Yeah, that's a lot of worms. Hopefully, I don't have to handle a lot of them. Because although I do worm farming and I handle the worms with my hand, I'm still not. If it is not the composting worms that I'm used to, then I don't really like to handle them. Help pieces, bless you. Oh, thank you. Sound of Nature. Wow. I've recently read about Asian jumping worms. I've never read about them, but I've heard them mentioned in a video once. They're highly invasive and problematic, apparently. Ooh, yeah, they can stay where they are then. The looks of any one species of worm can be drastically different depending on environment and health of the worms. That is so true, Russell. That is so true. Closet Order says, I'm seeing the names red wigglers, Einsenia fetida, red worms, Lubricus rubellus on the internet. I think the lubricus, that is not red worms. I think, if memory serves me right, those should be the night crawlers. Yeah, those are the scientific names for those worms, actually. Let's see. Russell says, been monitoring a population of jumping worms for a few years on the edge, creeping into wetlands. Oh, interesting. Do these worms actually jump? The name suggests that they jump. What are they like? Are they bigger than a red wiggler, smaller than a red wiggler? What colors are they? Closet order. How often do you aerate the bins? Um, your worm bins don't necessarily have to be aerated often. Um, and it depends also on what you're feeding them. So for me, I don't have a specific amount of time that I aerate my bins. It's just a matter of when I go to feed them. If I see that the bin look compacted, then I will just gently turn the material a bit. Sometimes I don't really turn it over fully. I just use my little trowel and just lift the material a bit just to let some air pockets in, but I don't really go and turn them up too much because worms don't like to be disturbed. Um, so because they don't like to be disturbed, if you're going to aerate your bin, I'd recommend maybe once a month you do that. If however your bin is acidic or smelling sour, then you might need to aerate it a little bit more often because that will help to make your bin aerobic again. Let's see. LP. I use paper and cardboard a lot, as well as yard and food waste when available. In addition to the newspaper and the cardboard, I also like to use the dried leaves as beddings. Yeah, but even that too sometimes can become compacted. So yeah, so you have to be careful of how much of that, how much moisture you have in that, because most times the moisture is what causes it to compact together. So if you can actually crush up the leaves somewhat, it would make it different. Or if you can mix in the leaves um, with the shredded paper, that will make a difference too. Okay. LP says, Russell, do you notice any degradation in the environment, plants and such? I read that they are really bad for soil because they consume material so quickly. Oh, so they're every feeders, eh? Let's see. The snake worms are thriving on fresh mulch. I don't really know if we have any of those here, but there's so much I don't know about Canada, although I've been here so long. Fresh mulch from trees, okay. Let's see. Closet hoarder. Early on, I aerated once or twice a week. I still aerate at least half the bin once a week, though. Sometimes I don't get around to it. I like to do so to check on them and add oxygen. Yeah. And sometimes if you bury your food scraps, the process of burying your food scraps will help to aerate your bin because you have to create an opening in the material that is already in your bin in order to bury your food scraps. So sometimes not much is needed. Okay. LP says, Russell, is it true that these are the same as Alabama jumping worms? Oh, interesting. I'd like to see the answer to that one. LP says, White Davy, I read that they are lighter in color with a pale clitellum. They do, in fact, kind of jump, or so I read. They are apparently very active. Okay. That's supposed to feel awful if you're to hold them in your hand and they're. Okay, let's see. Russell says worms can bioaccumulate metal in them and their castings. Jumping worms have a gland that convert those metal to mercury. To mercury? Oh, that's not good. So I would definitely don't want wouldn't want those worms. I know that the worms can break down the metal, but I don't know. Is it all worms that break it down to mercury? Because I know the worms break down metals, but to break it down to mercury, that would not be good at all. Mhm. Okay, aerate by hand or with a rake. That is up to you, my dear. If you use a rake, then it is good if you don't have to have your hand in there. If you're someone who opposed to having your hands, naked hands directly in the worms, or you can wear a gloves. But I don't really think it matter whether you use your hand or you use a rake to aerate your bin, as long as you're not using one of those shears or trowels or whatever it is called that has the sharp edges that can cut your worms. Yeah, those you that if you're using that, because you can use that, but you have to be very careful of how you use it because you don't want to be damaging your worms. So either your hand or the rake works pretty well. Russell, what? Really? Closet hoarder hand rake. Okay, let's see. LP, closet hoarder by hand, of course. Though I do wear gloves, my ENC do not like to be disturbed. They start crawling up the sides as soon as I start digging around. See, LP says, I use shredded up leaves this fall and it was a big success. Then they went around the yard. Then I went around the yard picking up dead plants. Yes, last year when I had just that one 4x7 worm bin in my garage, I actually filled the entire bin with shredded leaves to keep them over the winter, and then occasionally I would go in there and had the food scraps to it. So and oh my, they did very well in it. Actually, they did very well. The only problem I had with that was the size of the bin was so cumbersome and it was up against the wall, and because it is 4 feet wide, so one side of the bin was very difficult for me to access. So that is one of the reasons why I got rid of it. But I like that worm bin because I water them once a month. I feed them the food scraps once a month, and it's good to go. I didn't have to do a lot of work as compared to what I am doing now. But yes, the shredded leaves, they actually do pretty well in it, especially as a bedding. The amount of eggs that I harvested from that bin that year, well, it's not last year anymore, it's the year before. The amount of worm eggs and stuff that were in that bin, they did well. The see, Russell says they move like snakes. Okay. Worm that slithers. LP says, I've heard that. I heard some people see them and think they are small snakes. Since reading that article, I'm wondering if I did in fact find one in my yard this year. Not knowing any better, I was excited. They are the most lively worms. Okay. They're apparently so problematic it suggested that they be exterminated when found. I guess they break the material down so fast that they are reducing organic matter in the soil. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see, and White says, I don't do anything to my bin other than to feed them. Oh, that's nice, you know. That's a very easy bin to maintain. You put the food in there and you go. Yeah, I guess with the amount of fruits and vegetables that you consume on a regular basis, it would provide them with all the moisture that they need. And when you're feeding that, it doesn't get compacted much, so there's no need for you to aerate. That's nice. I wish I could have bins that it requires little or no maintenance. You just go and say, here you go, worms, bye. Of course, then I would spend the rest of the time standing there looking at them. Let's see. In my state, they are banned from all roads. That's interesting. So when you say banned from all roads, Russell, does that mean you can't transport them? Let's see. LP, have you ever noticed your casting feeling sticky? No, I've never noticed that. My castings always tend to feel nice and fluffy, but if it is allowed to dry, it feels really terrible. It's just so coarse. It's, I don't know. Okay, banned from public transportation. Okay. Oh, hi, hey Jay. It's nice of you to join us. So, AJ, do you keep any of your worms outdoors or do you keep all of them indoors? I think there's a joke here going around over my head. What joke is that? That's the way they did it. No transport. Okay. Okay, so have you ever experienced your castings getting solidified like a cement block? Because I've heard a few people complaining that the castings dried out and become like a concrete block, and after that, there's nothing that you can do to revive it. Have that ever happened to you? I've never experienced it, but let's see. AJ says I have a 33 gallon trash can that I keep outside. The rest are inside. Okay. So, is your weather warm enough throughout the winter that you can actually leave that 33-gallon bin with your worms outdoors? Let's see. Russell says the rule says if in hand, they must go into sealed plastic bag, then garbage. Wow, they must be taking it pretty seriously. I hear that somewhere here in Canada, there's a particular worm that we cannot import, and if we have them we have to get rid of them if we are shutting down that worm farm because they destroy certain regions of Canada. So you say that the worms you're talking about now, they reduce the organic matter in the soil. These worms that Canada has banned, I don't know what type of worms they are. They actually create too much organic material in the soil, and because of that, trees that don't like a lot of organic material, they decimated them. So I still don't know what type of worms that those are yet. I'm still trying to find out, but can't seem to find enough information on that. Let's see, closet order. The replacement bin I brought indoors was started with leaves and compost, but no holes in the bottom. And I only use cardboard cover, one or two escapees, but I only have around 100 or 150 worms anyway. Okay. Well, the amount of worms that you have doesn't really matter in terms of them trying to escape. If they're not comfortable, they will try to leave. So if you have 150 worms and you don't see them trying to escape, then it means that they're comfortable in their environment. So you should be happy. LP says, White Davy, thanks for bringing this up. I believe we talk about this a little in a comment. I have this problem. Okay, yes. I don't know. I just ensure because I never know that can happen. I just saw maybe three comments about that happening maybe in the last 2 weeks. I've actually watched a video with someone complaining that that happened to them. So I didn't know it could. When my castings dry out, it's always just refined but very hard. So I don't allow my castings to dry out fully. When I have my castings, I just ensure that every now and then I go back and I make sure I keep it damp. I keep it in a container that is aerated, so I get buckets, and just like I would with a worm bin, I put holes in the bucket, I put the castings in there. I don't seal it tight with the cover, and every now and then I go back and make sure that the casting is not dried, because I don't the reason I was doing that is to make sure that the bin is aerated and to make sure that I don't kill off the microbes when the castings dry out. So fortunately, I was doing that because to have it crystallized would have been pretty bad. Yes. Um, I think one method that you can use to ensure that if your castings dry out, it does not become that crystallized clump is to make sure that you sift your castings and have it all refined. That might help. Okay. I don't put holes in the bottom of my bins either. If I find standing water or really wet bin, then I had more bedding to dry it out. Yes, I don't really use holes in my newer set of bins anymore either, because if you're feeding food scraps produce enough moisture to keep your worms going, so you don't necessarily need to moisten them. And if you moisten them, just a little whiff on the surface of the bin should be enough. Yes, so I don't really moisten them, but because I'm feeding finished compost and the finished compost does not have any moisture on its own, so I have to water my bins. Let's see. Closet Hoarder says, I've seen a few videos about this, about the invasive worms. Okay. Yeah, I would like to know what type of worms they are for Canada, that is. Let's see. Let's see. Closet Orders is LP. That's good advice. Okay. AJ, I lost my first batch of worms because of the cold. When I harvested my castings, the worms that do not get sorted out are the ones that will go outside. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry you lost your first batch of worms. So, like those that are outdoors now, what do you do to keep them warm? LP says the castings I have stored in buckets are okay. They dry a bit on the top, then I fluff them. But the ones I dressed orchids with are turning into clumps. Okay, interesting. I've never really seen any of the castings that I use to dress any of my plants turn into clumps. So I'm not sure why that is. Probably has something to do with the mucus in their body reacting to something outside. Who knows? That would be a very interesting topic to research. Maybe I should jot that down. Okay, let's see. AJ says the outside bin will have a mixture of red and European night crawlers. I will keep that one outside all year round. Okay. So when you keep, see, I had food scraps, cardboard, and shredded newspaper. And that alone is enough to keep them warm outdoors. You must have some really nice temperatures where you are. So how often do you guys feed your worms? Do you have a specific time when you feed your worms, like once a week, twice a week, or do you just feed them whenever you have food scraps available? This is a trial phase. Okay, I hope it goes well for you, AJ. It would be interesting to see the result. I hope you're planning on make a video on that. So what about your castings? Have you ever produced more castings than you need in a growing season? I have. Okay. Yeah, I am yet to experience that where I have more than I need. That would be a delight when I reach that stage. Yeah. Let's see. LP says, I feed my worms once a week. Okay. So do you find, like, for those of you who are worm farming, do you find that the amount of food scraps that your home produce, is that enough to maintain your worms, or do you have to supplement the food from somewhere else? Let's see. Helpy says, I have more food scraps than my worms eat, so that is why I went ahead and started composting in garbage bin outdoor. Okay, that's good. That's good. I don't currently need all the castings I have, but I will add to my seed starting mix. And sure, I won't have enough to amend my beds for spring. Okay, but that's good that you have more than you need. We'll see how it goes next year, or well, when the growing season start. By then, your worm should be giving you quite a bit more castings. Let's see. Oh, you produce more than your worms can eat. Okay, that's good. You don't have to go anywhere to source food for your worm. Just finished daily feeding. Okay, nice. I need to go out later after this live and go look after them because I missed my scheduled date yesterday, so I'm gonna have to get that done shortly. So when you use your casting, what do you use it for? Do you use it to amend your soil? Do you use it as fertilizer? Do you use it as a worm tea? Or do you just put it on your plants as is? I would really like to amend my soil with more castings, but at the moment I'm not producing just enough yet that I can use it to amend my soil. I've been working on amending my soil with compost for, I don't know, quite a few years now, but I'm still not quite there yet. So I'd like to see my casting production increase to the point where I can actually add at least a 10-inch layer of castings to the soil, mix it all in. Let's see. I use it to amend and fertilize. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, it was a very interesting live. Let's see what AJ says. I think as long as you have newspaper and bedding, they will be fine. If food scraps are low, there are friends that can help, even though worm farmers, even though worm farmers are crazy. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. If you're saying worm farmers are crazy, I know I am. Yeah. Okay, so I think we are coming to a close on this live. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. And if not, then we're gonna be closing down. Thanks for all the participation. It was fun. Lovely, lovely live. Okay, thank you, Ann White. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Something different. Yeah, maybe I can do this once a month instead of constantly just giving practical information. Yeah, probably I can do this once a month for my worm farm live and for my gardening live as well. It really was fun. Okay, LP says great time. Okay, thank you, Ann White. Please like. Thank you, Ann White. Fun little worm party. Closet Hoarder says I enjoyed it. Russell says have a great day, everyone. AJ, I pray blessing for your channel. Keep up the great work. Oh, thank you. That's so kind. LP says, you as well, Russell, and have a great weekend. Stay well, everyone. Same to you all. Thank you for being here. It was fun. It was really fun. So I will be seeing you next week, all being well. Okay, Russell said, okay, just a bit of reminder. See, and White says, have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And AJ said, bye, everyone. Okay, yes. So those of you who follow the gardening worm lady, let's do our best to see how we can support her as she goes through her difficult time. So that is it, guys. Thank you for being here and have yourself a wonderful day.